Welcome to the Josh Bolton Show, where we dive into interesting and inspiring conversations. And now, your host, Josh Bolton.
Hi, welcome everybody. Today we have David Fradin. I think I said his last name correctly. Perfect. Thank you. We're going to go over the 5 keys of product success, the different ways to implement it, and how to dissect it. Actually, I'll just let David explain it.
Well, it's actually an acronym for my company's name, Spice Catalyst. So for the word SPICE, S stands for strategy, P stands for process, I stands for information, C stands for customer, and E stands for employees or staff. You want me to go through each of those in detail?
Absolutely.
Well, the first one, which is the most important one, is strategy, and that's your market strategy for your product. And that is defining what is your product, what does it do for the customer, how does it do it, why do the customers want to do that, when does it get done, what's standing in their way, and that type of thing. And then that rolls into a value proposition and incorporating design thinking and the innovation, which is doing things bigger, faster, better, higher quality, lower cost. Then from that, you do your competitive and your market research to help build out your product market strategy. From that, you can then do your product positioning, identify the personas of the types of customers that will be buying and or using your product. And then your distribution strategy, your target markets, your market segmentation, your market size, so you can do a sales forecast. And then lastly, your pricing strategy. You put all that together. There's actually 32 elements of a product market strategy, which gives you a plan, because strategy and plan are words that can be used interchangeably for development of the product.
Interesting. Sorry, keep going.
The second part of the SPICE is the process, and you need to have go up the maturity curve of the process so that you can repeat success over and over again. I had one client once, they hired me to come in and to assess their process and develop a process for them. And the VP of product management there said that they've developed and introduced 5 new products in the last year or so, and all 5 of them failed. And because they lacked a process, the people just pointed fingers at each other and blamed each other for those product failures. So his comment was the lack of a written down, agreed upon process results in a culture of blame as opposed to a culture of product success. The third element of SPICE, the I, is make sure you have the information you need available when you need it. Otherwise, you're flying blind and taking guesses in terms of making decisions. The C is clearly understanding what it is that your customer wants to do. How do they do it? Where do they do it? Why do they do it? When do they do it? What's important to them? How satisfied are they with the current solution? And that can then be used in design thinking, innovation, and that helps you come up with a very clear value proposition, which then when you go into marketing and into sales, you now know what your key copy points are, your key sales points are. Your sales pitch can be then derived from that by understanding your customer. And over the last 10 years, more and more companies have become what's called customer-centric, and where they're focusing on customer satisfaction. Like Amazon's number one goal is complete customer satisfaction. Apple's goal is also customer satisfaction. It stems from their values that they developed back in 1978, which is empathy for the customer. And lastly, to have amongst your employees, or the E in SPICE, the skill sets necessary for success. And in the book that I wrote on foundations of product success for Wiley, which is used as a textbook in executive education, MBA courses in several universities in India, I identified 130 skill sets that a company has to have amongst their employees in order to have product success.
Interesting. I like the way you presented it. I've had other people like talking about implementation for products, but they were more like, oh, here's the 19 steps to success. And it's like, but like 3 of those you could have just like bundled into one kind of thing. That's really nice.
And others talk about things like product market fit.
Yes.
Well, but before you can get to a product market fit, you got to understand what it is that your customers want to do, and then aggregate them amongst common personas into a market. And then you're going to have a product market fit. But there's work that has to be done before that. Others advocate ready, fire, aim, fail fast, which comes out of some of the venture capitalists and angel investors here in Silicon Valley, where I'm located. And that assumes that you're shooting in the general right direction. But if you have no idea what it is that your product is supposed to do for the customer, you can easily take a pot shot and miss. And hence explains why about 40% of all new products each year fail in the marketplace. And that represents a waste of about $500 billion to $1 trillion each year in research and development, because that fundamental understanding of what it is that your customer wants to do and how your product can solve that work hasn't been done. Classic example of this is Henry Ford went out and asked people, hey, would you like to have a car? And they said, no, I just want a faster horse. If Henry had sat on the stoop in Detroit and watched people galloping down the street or whipping their horses to make their carriage go faster, he would have realized that the question is, would you like to get from point A or point B faster? And of course, the answer to that is yes. Mm-hmm. If he had done what Google has done, and that is did a keyword search to see how many people were searching on the internet, if the internet existed then, how many people would like to have a car or a automobile, he would have come up with no hits. Therefore, there was no market on that basis for a car. And therefore, what we see today in terms of traffic and highways is simply a mirage. And that's one of the dangers of this wisdom of the crowds notion that Facebook has exploited tremendously, where the most important thing was how much time you spent on their page and how many things you click on, called clickbait. And that, of course, led to the major perturbations in our elections and in democracy over the last, 6-7 years. Ever since the Russians decided back in 2014 that they could weaponize social media tools like Facebook and disrupt democracies around the world.
Yeah, no, that was very disheartening to hear when that came into being.
Yeah, and Kira Swisher, I think her name is, a columnist for the New York Times, and has been commenting on technology for a long time, tried to explain this to Zuckerberg, but he is so naive he refused to listen. It was only just recently, I think the last week or so, Facebook decided to police what politicians say the same way they'll police what everybody else says. That if you get on there and you try to incite violence or are lying, they will not promote those posts. Whereas in the past, they made a lot of money off of that because bad news and rumors spread a lot easier than the truth.
Yes, that's that was an analogy I figured out a while ago when I was working at a warehouse. Is they were like, oh, the bad news is spreading quickly, but I'm like, yeah, but it's fear. It's like the basics of the market, fear and greed kind of thing.
Yep.
So it's interesting. Well, then being the product success guy, Facebook's structure to use fear other until recently with the government forcing their hand. Would that be something to implement in like a SaaS kind of business?
What do you mean by SaaS?
Software as a service?
Well, there are a number of SaaS products out there. I don't know of any of them that are using fear to make money like Facebook has. Eventually, the loyalty that people have to Facebook, I think, is pretty thin. As soon as one could move to a different platform that you have a higher level of trust in, that loyalty could evaporate very quickly. And in fact, about 2 or 3 years ago, the Senate committee that follows high tech wrote a several hundred-page report calling on the social media companies to make the data that their users have stored in their platform portable. And Facebook has participated in such a development of such a tool. So I think any day now there could be an alternative proposed to Facebook, and people will be able to go to Facebook, download all of their conversations, more importantly, download all their pictures and all their posts, and then move that over to another platform, and also download and bring along with them their friends. Because I think people are loyal to Facebook because it has their connections, their social connections to their friends. Plus, they might have their pictures there. My daughter, several years ago, started storing her pictures on Instagram, and then the Russians were able to hack in and steal her account. And she even went so far as to send Zuckerberg, who, by the way, Facebook owns Instagram, a FedEx letter saying, "Hey, my account's been hacked. Can you help me get it back?" Got absolutely no response. And she knows a number of other people who've had a similar thing happen to them, and therefore she doesn't use Instagram anymore. I think it's just a matter of time that the fear-mongering that Facebook has enabled will result in people leaving the platform. I know for my purposes, I barely look at it anymore because I didn't like the manipulation of what they did.
Yeah, it's very it's almost toxic. You can like feel how your mind is almost ramping up when it shouldn't, kind of thing.
There's a product manager. I think he graduated from Stanford. Then he went to work for Google. In the group, try to figure out how to get people engaged more and how to get them to click more. Because at Google, if you click on stuff, then the advertisers spend money on your site. He's since left there, and he's written a book, and I think he teaches a course back at Stanford on this topic of, I'm just going to use the term clickbait, and how to reduce that. When you have on your Facebook icon on your iPhone, for example, a little one there showing you, or a little exclamation mark saying that you've got a message or you've got something you need to look at, people feel compelled. They have to go there and look at it. And that's all of these kinds of nefarious ways of getting people's attention is of concern.
It is. And that's what you just pointed out. That is the biggest one for me. That's why I got rid of a lot of my social media and I just use third-party apps to post for me. Because if I saw the little notification, even if it was just like, oh, like suggestion, I have to go in and clear the notification.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. It bugs me.
Yeah.
So interesting. Yeah. So then for all that, how would, as from your position, how do you think we could fix it?
That kind of social media stuff?
Yeah.
First is the recognition that freedom of speech does not equal freedom to lie.
Okay.
And to go back to trusted sources like professional journalists who also have editors, and they jury what's published in their newspaper or in their magazine or what's broadcast on national news. Now, certainly some mistakes are going to be made and some games will be played. But for the most part, you can trust what the journalism is telling us, contrary to what fascists and dictators want us to believe, that it's the media's fault. Well, the media doesn't do anything. It's just a carrier of the information. So it's a recognition by social media that the First Amendment does not say you can say anything you want about anything at any time. It's instead of allowing everybody to post whatever they want on Facebook or any video that they want on YouTube, I think those companies should have a jury put together that will review that material before it's presented to anybody else. But that costs money. And of course, they make more money by not having to jury anything that goes out.
That's interesting. Yeah. I mean, like YouTube, I think it's statistics like every hour, like 100 million hours worth of content is uploaded on YouTube alone.
Yeah.
So like humanly, that's not possible for us to review.
They don't have 100 million uploads. Have 10 that are good.
Yeah, but the others are all crap and fear mongering, and then the 10 that were good never get seen.
Exactly, and it gets drowned out in the avalanche.
It really does, and especially how the algorithms are, and we, even as naive people, like my coworkers now, don't even touch articles on their Google feed because they're like, it's cool, but I don't want that in my algorithm. I don't want to see stuff like that in the future, so I'm not even interacting. And I'm like, interesting. You're not even like savvy in that, and you know not to do that.
Yeah, that's interesting. And it also appears that a lot of people do not have the critical judgment to ascertain where something is true or not. And that kind of critical thinking used to be taught in school. At least I thought it was. It doesn't appear to be taught, or people aren't paying attention. And that's another reason why they fall down the rabbit hole.
I was going to say, that was, now that you mentioned the critical thinking, do you think it's the school, or do you think it's also because parents are not taking time to actually work with the kids because they're on their phones too?
Don't know. I don't know. I mean, I had civics when I grew up, and a lot of people don't even have civics now. They have no idea how the government works. Like, or somebody, very prominent Republican, that said, "Yeah, there's the new senator from Alabama, the former football coach." He says, "Yeah, there's three branches of government: the executive branch, the House of Representatives, and the Senate."
What about Congress?
Well, that's Congress. What he forgot about was the Supreme Court.
Yeah. I'm trying to think the president and the two houses. I'm like,
what?
Like, wait, there is one missing somewhere.
Yeah. And then Marjorie Taylor Greene says, what is it? Getting a vaccination is equivalent to the Holocaust.
That's just horseshit.
Yeah. She obviously doesn't know her history, or doesn't.
No, because it's not going to kill you.
No.
I mean, I got COVID back in December, and then I got the vaccination so I could go on my vacation. But I mean, the December one was worse than the March or April whenever I got fully vaccinated. It was just, I had to call into work and just be like, "Hey, I'm going to be down for the next 24 hours kind of thing. See you in 2 days." Compared to when I got COVID, God, I was down for like 2 weeks.
Well, you're also more immune to it now that you've had both the actual disease and the vaccination, according to studies from the CDC. And
it's super funny. A lot of my coworkers, they're still super scared, and they're like, "You have to wear a mask." I'm like, I live at home. Like, you can see, I'm in my room. Am I a threat? Kind of thing. I don't leave my room. You all go to the bar in Disneyland. I just stay in my room.
Well, the interesting thing about COVID is that I was suspicious. I'm an engineer, a scientist by training. I was suspicious that its primary mode of transmission is through the air, and hence the purpose of the mask and social distancing. But early on, the CDC thought it also spread by contact, because previous COVID viruses, like a common cold is a COVID virus, primarily spreads by contact, by you touching something and then scratching your nose or rubbing your eyes or something like that. And that's why Anthony Fauci did not emphasize masks back in February of 2020. By the end of February, some studies were coming out of the CDC suggesting that it was being transmitted by being airborne. And that's when Fauci started talking about wearing masks. And of course, Peter, what's his name, Thiel, an advisor to Trump, and right now, the old Trump administration is running a campaign to discredit Dr. Anthony Fauci because he did not emphasize masks at the beginning, saying he therefore was wrong, and therefore the whole COVID pandemic is Fauci's fault, which is absolutely ridiculous.
So, yeah, that's just ridiculous. He's just grabbing our straws now. But that's interesting. You brought up the origin where they thought it was mouth and eyes, not mask. There was an article I was reading, and I also heard it. I listened to Investors podcasting, and one of them, a guy said, "Yeah, if you go to the South China Post right now, you'll see that the people researching in China even said there's something wrong with this virus. It has a HIV connector, which no normal coronavirus has ever had a HIV connector." And he's like, and all the 2,000 variances, they don't have a HIV connector. So he's like, I think it's man-made. It's weaponized.
I read the CDC studies. I get an email from them once a week with their latest studies, and I've not heard anything about an HIV connector on the coronavirus.
Interesting.
So that's fake.
Probably then. But it was just the man-made part is what I took it from, because he was the way he said it's not normal how it's structured, kind of thing.
Yeah, but neither are bats normal, so who knows?
Yes, they are not normal at all.
Yeah, I think part of the human nature is if something goes wrong, you have to find somebody else to blame. And that's part of this whole thing. It's not part of the scientific method in order to solve a problem or to find a cure, but it's certainly part of the human condition that if something goes wrong, you got to find something to blame.
Okay. What are your insights on that, and why we resort to that as an engineer?
It's easier than trying to figure out what the problem is and what the solution ought to be. It's convenient. So we just blame China for the virus. Blame what was the pandemic 100 years ago? What name did they put on that?
I think wasn't it the Spanish flu or something like that?
Something like that. It actually originated in Kansas City.
Really?
Yep.
I did not know that. That's interesting.
So I think Kansas City flu doesn't sound as bad as the Spanish flu.
I don't know. It sounds kind of wholesome when you say Kansas City flu.
It's probably the only thing Kansas City is known for.
Damn. Well, that's rough for them. Yeah, that stuff's not taught in the history books. They barely talk about the 100-year-old plague, the Spanish flu one or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think they're now taking out World War II because it's more than 100 years. We don't need to learn about it.
Well, it's funny when I had history classes in junior high school and in high school, and the planning at the time was not good enough. So we usually the class was over before we got into the last 150 years of history, which I think is kind of silly because I think the last 150 years of history has more influence on our society and on our politics today than all of history combined before 150 years ago.
Yes. Yeah, very much so.
The racial discrimination dating back to the Civil War is still going on today. Yeah.
It's just much louder today with the internet.
Yes. It's been able to spread easier, or it's more visible.
I think a lot of things are more visible when they used to not be.
Yeah, I think a few years ago, I thought about 10% of the U.S. population was racist. I'm now beginning to think that it's more like 30 to 40% of the entire U.S. population.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's not half and half the way that social media makes it seem like, oh, you're this party or this party. I think it's more, or it could be 50-50, but 20% of the 50 that is racist, it's just more was a taught habit. If they were corrected, they wouldn't even say it, kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think Barack Obama once commented that when a baby is born, it's not born racist. You have to find somebody else to blame. So, for example, a few years ago, someone said to me that Black people are lazy and they just want to collect welfare. I said, well, wait a minute. Back in the mid 90s, that was all corrected between President Clinton and Congress. But here we are, 25 years later, spouting the same lie.
Mm-hmm.
My dad told me growing up in Detroit, the reason there were so many blacks in Detroit is because they were looking for welfare. Well, it turns out that they left the South because of the persecution that they were receiving as a result of the color of their skin. And they were searching for a better economic opportunity for themselves and for their family. It's the same reason that my grandfather emigrated from the Ukraine to the United States, also looking for a better future for him, his wife, and his family. Plus, he was told that if he didn't get out of the country, he would get killed in the seventh Holocaust to occur in the Ukraine in the previous 150 years.
Yeah.
So he was running for his life. Same way the people from Central America are trying to immigrate to the United States.
And as long as they do the proper paperwork and do the process, like my martial arts instructor, he's an immigrant from, he tried to say the name, I don't know how to pronounce it. It's near Iran and Iraq. But so he left that area, the Middle East, to come here. And he said, I'm a legal citizen. I literally renounced my previous country, kind of thing. Like, there's no going back now. He's like, but he's like, the ones that are local, like, they're not citizen. They're here. And he's like, I respect them and they're hustlers. But he's like, get your damn citizenship, kind of thing. And I'm like, I agree. I mean, if they come and they do their time, they should get it.
Two aspects to that. One is international law says that if you're afraid for your life, you can ask for refuge in another country as soon as you set foot on that other country. That's international law.
Right.
International law does not say take the kids away from the parents and put them in a cage and make them sleep on a concrete floor. That's cruelty. The first thing that most people don't know is that if you feel your life is threatened, you don't have to apply for asylum. In fact, right now, there are thousands of interpreters in Afghanistan for the United States who all are being threatened with death by the Taliban as soon as the Taliban gets stronger and all the American troops are gone. And they're all tied up in paperwork to get out of Afghanistan. In fact, one fellow who was a decorated helicopter pilot has been in hiding for the last year, and he finally got permission to come to the United States after Trump turned him down. So much for loving our troops. The second thing is Congress has been unable for 25 years to modify our immigration laws so as to make the whole process better. And it's a result of the failure of Congress that he may be here allegedly illegally. It's because Congress can't come to an agreement on how to deal with immigration, which is what built this country in the first place.
And the whole reason of that story was just like him. He's not a true citizen, but he's a citizen by like whatever this verbals and semantics. But he gets a little intense. That's where I'm like, calm down, buddy. But he brought up a good point. He's like, because you're in California, you probably heard about it. Like in San Diego, the homeless during COVID were in the stadium, and then I think it was within the last 2 or 3 months they kicked them out to bring all the immigrants in, or the ones seeking asylum. Did you hear about that or no?
No.
Yeah, it was something like that. I could be really butchering all the details, but essentially we kicked out our own people, the homeless, to bring in people from like Mexico. And he was just like, why can't we take care of the homeless kind of thing? Like, why can't we take care of our own people? And I jokingly told him, I'm like, that's not caring enough for the other people. And he's like, that is whatever with this woke America shit. He's like, they're homeless, like help them.
Well, Governor Newsom is trying to do that. I forget how much money he has set aside in the latest budget. But at the beginning of COVID, he tried to buy hotels and house homeless people in the hotels to get them off the streets. The city of Los Angeles, and I think it was a Canadian city, Both have run experiments to found that if you get the homeless off the street, they can usually rehabilitate themselves and become a tax-paying member of society at a much, much higher rate than people that are homeless or living on the street. Many people are just one accident away, one disaster away from being homeless and on the street.
Right.
So there's a lot of effort in trying to fix that problem. But then you also have the situation of the not in my backyard thing. One of the peninsula cities near me in Silicon Valley, the city council blocked the ability to buy and put homeless in those in a hotel there. Along the El Camino Real that runs through Palo Alto, outside of Stanford University, there used to be blocks and blocks of RV vehicles parked along the road where people were living in those RV vehicles. Mm-hmm. Well, the city of Palo Alto, I think, city council said, no, you can't park there anymore, and didn't provide an alternative, which is kind of crazy because during that period of time, you had shopping malls with huge parking lots that were empty. Where's our compassion? You could buy a used RV for what, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, maybe even finance it's only costs you like $100 a month.
Yeah.
It provides shelter for you and your family and your kids, because the cost of housing here in Silicon Valley is astronomical. I think the average price of a home is now up about $1.5 million.
In your area?
Yeah.
That's insane. Yeah, like even a normal Joe like me can't even get that. It's really rare to find a house in California under $100,000.
Oh yeah, that's right. It's almost nowhere.
Yeah, even in like Victorville in the middle of nowhere, that's $200K right there. That's interesting because the one thing I thought it wouldn't be a permanent structure, but it would be enough to get the people off the street. Is like, as an engineer, it's be interesting to hear your take. Is because we have a lot of plastic problems. Why don't we collect it all, melt it into a brick, kind of like super Legos, and this basic tin roof, and literally say you live here till you get a house, then you can move on to something else, a safer place, because this is not meant to be lived in forever.
Yeah, the cost of building housing is very expensive, even for the homeless. And manufactured homes really haven't taken off that much. Gets bogged down by building codes that are different city by city.
Yeah.
There is a company in Austin, Texas, that's using 3D printing of homes. And there's a whole development there. I think they're building like 20 or 30 homes. It takes like 3 days for this 3D printer to print out the home. And that, I forget the exact number, but I think it cuts the cost per square foot by 50%.
That's interesting. Is it like plastic or is it more like a mud?
It's more like a mud, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say that would be a lot of plastic if you're going to do that.
Well, the problem with plastic is not all plastics are recyclable.
They're not. I used to work at a plastic plant. I got my hand mauled to work in there. And that was the biggest one. They're like, if you want to put, I don't even remember half of them. They're like, this brand of whatever, which needs to melt at 400 degrees Celsius. And I'm like,
wow.
What the heck? And they're like, yeah, Celsius, not Fahrenheit. They're like, we literally have to put in a magma chamber just to get it liquefied.
Yeah.
They're like, so don't try to put that in a pot. You'll just have random chunks floating around. Like, how? And they're like, oh, because that's how I got my hand messed up. We had to literally grab it, put it on the table, spin the thing to get the shavings off. But the thing's still like insanely hot and we didn't have gloves. I was really sad.
They did not give you gloves?
No.
Oh, jeez.
Nope. And it was just one of those. I actually did ask him, like, do I need to go buy my own pair of welder's glove kind of thing? Because, like, this is stupid. I'm literally playing with molten stuff right now. But that was the thing. They said their process, their product, we don't have that priced in. And I'm like, well, that's, I mean, if you maul all your employees, who's going to want to come in kind of thing?
Sounds like you should file a whistleblower's report with OSHA.
Yeah. Yeah, it was one of those, because I was unemployed for like 6 months. So I went to a work, those job centers where you go and apply and they get you a job.
Uh-huh.
And I just went to them because like I need work kind of thing. And they sent me there, and I'm like, I just told them when I got back, don't send anyone there. That's literally hell. So I'm like, I don't care. They were gonna have to like double our pay kind of thing. And it was, I think, how they legally structured it, I was not even getting full minimum wage kind of thing. So it was just one of like, dude, they need to at least pay 20 an hour and give us gloves.
Well, the Republicans have been saying lately that because people are getting unemployment compensation, they don't want to work. Yet companies and businesses are saying they're trying to hire people and they can't hire them.
It's a wage problem.
One company I just saw yesterday tried to hire people at $7.25 an hour. Got no applicants over a 2-3 month period. Then they raised what they were going to pay up to the minimum wage, or what the minimum wage should be, $15 an hour, and they got 1,000 applicants. So it's a lot of these things are just supply and demand.
Yeah, that's the biggest one. I like, because I'm a grocery store worker. I work at night, and the biggest one we were just saying, like, we don't mind this work, but it's one of those like we can literally make more money at Starbucks kind of thing with tips than we can here. So why should we be loyal when we can make more over there?
And you can get a free college education if you work at Starbucks.
Exactly. And it's just one of those, it's like, it's not really rocket science. It's like, if you pay them more, they'll stay longer and they'll actually want to be there.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. So we went down this whole rabbit hole. Let's get back onto the product stuff.
Okay.
I love these chats though. So you were saying strategy, the process, and what was I again for Spice?
Information. You have the information available in order to make an accurate decision. And we were just talking about some of that. What is the nature of the homeless condition and what's the cure? And if you have that information available on those studies, then you know what you need to implement in your community.
That's interesting. Yes, no, it's very true. I'm curious from you, from the businessman, but also engineer. Let's say someone's trying to find a niche or a segment of the market, but they don't know how. That's where the information comes in. But let's say, I don't know, I just almost threw my container. Let's just say I make a container like this, but I don't know who to market it to. Would I call you for that kind of thing?
Yeah, you could. The best way to get started is, again, going back to understanding what it is that people want to do. You start doing that by observing. You observe what people do. And then from that, you can then derive an interview questionnaire and go out and interview 50 to 100 people and classify them into different personas. And then if you can find a market which those personas map into that's large enough, then you know how to target your marketing. And if you can then quantify the size of the market by then surveying somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,000 to 1,500 people, again, in terms of what it is that they want to do. So it's observation, then interviews, then surveys. And if you're lucky enough, like Google, and have a lot of big data available, you can then look at the big data and analyze that big data for other insights into what it is that people want to do.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's the biggest one as I've talked to people, and I appreciate the way you broke it down, because they're like, oh, you just need to find a pattern in the market. It's like, well, how do you find a pattern kind of thing?
Well, that's backwards. It's assuming the market knows what it is that people want to do. The market is nothing more than an amalgamation, a conglomerate of the same interests in doing the same things. That's how you define a market. I'll give you an example of this. When I was general manager, business unit manager for the Apple III product line at Apple, and at that time we had Apple II, Apple III, the Mac had not yet been introduced, and the Lisa had just been introduced. So my division was generating about a third of the profits of the company at the time. But we had a lot of MBAs at the company, and because no one had yet defined the small and medium business market, SMB, or the small office and home office market, or SOHO market. All those MBAs thought that my product, the Apple III, which was a business computer, that there was no market for it. And therefore, they didn't want to support the product internally with anything. And it was a constant fight inside the company to remain relevant and be able to get our message out to the sales force in order for the product to get sold. So if you go backwards, if you say, okay, I've identified a market, now we're going to build a product for that market, chances are it's not going to succeed, because if you're wrong in your identification of the market, like those MBAs at Apple didn't think there was a market of SMB or SOHO, then you usually conclude that the product's not going to be a success. A far better way is to let the market decide. Give you a classic example of this. When I was in aerospace engineering at the University of Michigan, the Apollo 15 astronauts were all Michigan aerospace grads. So the aerospace engineering department chartered an airplane and flew us all down to Cape Canaveral. I think it was called Cape Canaveral at the time before it became Cape Kennedy, and watched the Apollo launch, and then took us by bus to Disney World, which was under construction at the time, south of Orlando. And we met with the chief Imagineer. They don't call them engineers at Disney, they're called Imagineers. And one of my fellow industrial engineering students in the back of the room said, "How did you guys decide where to put the sidewalks?" And everybody else in my class laughed. And I thought that was the dumbest question you could ever ask. And the chief Imagineer said, that's a really smart question. We argued about where the sidewalks were going to go for over 3 days. Then finally, one of the junior Imagineers says, "Let's don't put in any sidewalks." And they thought that was, blasphemy, that to not have a huge world-class amusement park and no sidewalks. And he went on to say, "We're not smart enough to know where people are going to walk. So let's just plant grass everywhere. And in about 3 weeks, we can go back and see where the grass has been worn down by people walking on it. And we can put in sidewalks there." And
that's really smart.
That's what Disney World did. And that's what I kept trying to tell my fellow Appleites at Apple. Don't you decide whether there's a market for the Apple III or not. Let the market decide. And they'll decide by not buying the product anymore. That's when we discontinue it. And not until then do we get rid of this cash cow. Well, the notion of a cash cow didn't come out until about 5 years later. So nobody at the company could conceive of the opportunity to take a mature product whose R&D has all been completely paid for and make money off of it until the market decides it no longer wants that product.
That's interesting. That's some great insights. So I'm curious for you. I don't know if you get this deep and technical with your clients. For the observing and surveying part, you could bypass all that and use pay-per-click ads on like Google and Facebook to see if there's even a market now. Throw $100 at it and see if anyone just clicks, kind of thing. Is that another method for the modern day?
Yeah, that's using big data. Certainly, you could put up different ads for the same product and see which one gets the most clicks. In fact, that's what Google does all the time. They're changing the colors on their homepage, waiting to try to figure out which ones will get the most clicks. And they're constantly running what's called A/B tests. This A test versus this B test, and then they compare them. And all of the decisions at Google, if you take a look at a book called What Would Google Do, tells you that all their decisions are data driven.
I'm going to write that down on my list to buy. Would Google do?
It boils down to it's the data, stupid.
Okay. So it's just pure numbers. If the numbers say it, keep doing it. If it doesn't, get out of it before it's a problem.
Run a different test.
Okay. Interesting. So do you think in this day of being inundated with constant ads that is that still a viable way, or do you think it's more we're transitioning to like a renaissance, more like word of mouth kind of thing?
Well, the word of mouth has gotten colored by the things we were talking about from Facebook in the past.
Okay.
That is word of mouth through the internet. Word of mouth has always been the most trusted way that products have been recommended. But we've also seen the recommendations on a number of sites were conjured up by giving things away. Like I buy products from Amazon, and many of them now are coming with a little postcard inside that if you go rate our product that you just got, you haven't even opened the box yet, we'll give you another one for free, or we'll give you a discount or something like that. So the best word of mouth is where the person is not compensated for making the endorsement. There are people on TikTok and on YouTube that make a lot of money just doing recommendations, and then big brands are going to them and hiring them to recommend their product. If I know that that's going on, that's first in the ethics of persuasion. That's unethical to get compensated and give a recommendation and not disclose that you're getting compensated.
Isn't that this, at least for California? I don't know about the whole USA, but I know in California you have to disclose that kind of information.
Really? Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, at least for California, I know you have to disclose that information. Like same with cookies for your websites, you got to disclose that you need it, kind of thing, as like the full transparency. Yeah, so they technically, if they're based in California and like showing their videos and whatever in California, technically they're breaking the law.
Yeah, but who's going to enforce that?
Yeah, that's the biggest problem. Who are we going to have a whole AI robot team going after everyone? That'd become a technical nightmare.
Well, as soon as they can stop all the robocalls that I get, I probably get about a day now.
How many? Okay, what phone do you have? Apple or Google?
I've got an iPhone, and I use Xfinity Mobile.
Okay.
Which is a virtual network on Verizon, and both Verizon and Xfinity Mobile block those calls. So if I get a call from someone who I don't know, it's all automatically silenced.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I have the Google Pixel, and there was a setting they just did where now any call that's not in my contact, it's immediately screened. It sends me a transcript and everything. If it's an actual human, they're like, you might want to answer this kind of thing. But other than that, yeah, I have it set to like, if I don't, it's not in my contacts, it's dismiss it kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's a waste of time.
Yeah. Well, there's an app you can get, I was just reading about, but it costs you, I think, like $19 a month, that will help you track down whoever made that call and help you sue them. So if you got nothing else to do, you could probably go out and sue these spammers and make some money off of it.
Well, here's the thing with the spammers, because they're notorious for keep moving. How are you going to actually get them to come to court, kind of thing?
I don't know. I think this was a New York Times article about that subject just in the last 3 days.
Okay, that'd be interesting to look into. Yeah, especially for those who have nothing better to do. It's like, all right, we're going to witch hunt this person that keeps calling me every 5 minutes.
Yeah. I think the phone company should block the ability to spoof the phone number that it comes from. And that's similar to also with, we were talking about the fake news that propagates on Facebook and YouTube and so forth. Don't allow anybody to post anything unless we know who they are.
Or just don't recommend it in my feed. If it's my friend, I should be able to tell the algorithm, don't actually show me this kind of thing. Yeah.
Well, if it's a person that is real and you know where they live, then you could recommend whatever they post, assuming that it's not a lie and it's not hurtful. But that's part of the problem with the platforms is they let anything post anything. I think Facebook has banned millions, if not hundreds of millions of accounts because they are fake. The Russian spy agencies, the Internet Research Institute, I think it's called, which was a part of the KGB during the Trump campaign, they would have thousands of fake accounts, and they would tweet something or post something, and then there's all these other accounts with bots would automatically pick up those things and retweet them, creating a signal to Google that thing is an authority because so many people retweeted it or clicked on it. And that was part of the search engine optimization that the Russians were able to do to weaponize social media. So again, going back, the solution to that is to require anybody that posts something be a real person.
I'm curious because then let's say that kind of like me, I don't really use social media, but I'm logging into whatever the new platform is. How am I supposed to prove it? Do I just give them my driver's license and have them check it, or they have to send me a letter and like an email?
Twitter used to do this. They used to have a trusted user thing. And I think, I don't remember exactly, but I think I took a picture of my driver's license and sent it in.
Okay. So do you think any social media now we should be giving them our license to be verified as a real person?
Yes, I think so. You have to use your birth certificate to get a passport.
Okay. But that's the government documentation. Social media can, like with the Russians just earlier, that could be easily infiltrated and they could take all our data. Now they have our name, our driver's license, address, date of birth. The only thing they're missing is social, but they can find that later.
Yeah, they could fake your identity, or they could steal your identity, certainly. Mm-hmm. But there are ways to confirm. The two-factor authorization is one way to do it. So then you try to sign up, and then they text you a message to your phone, and then you have to reply to that before the access or the sign up is complete.
Okay, yeah, it's usually under a minute kind of thing, but it's interesting because even for like the spammers now, it's getting automated because like you have Google Text and Google Voice, so all they got to do is just call the made up account or text the made up account, and then send an email to whatever it is that corresponds, and they can still bypass everything.
Yeah, there's always a way to get around stuff like this. But I'm sure there's enough security people that are clever enough to invent a system that would be nearly foolproof.
Yeah, I had a guy come on. We were supposed to do like a casual talk like this. There's this new thing with podcasters. They want to do a pre-meeting before the meeting. Yeah. He thought it was that. And we were talking about that with the solar winds hack, and there's I guess like an Agora or something hack. And it was just one of those. He was just telling me, he's like, it's actually a shame that no one's talking about this. Literally, these agents in Russia or China, whatever it is, we can't figure that out yet. Essentially, I've seen the American ecosystem within the system, and he's like, and no one's freaking out about this. So I asked him, like, what's the process then? What's a step I can do to not 100% proof me, but like more than 60? And he's like, two-factor. He's like, email and text, or email and they send to like a Google Authenticator number, because he's like 60 to 80% of the time the other hacker can't do that. Mm-hmm. But he's like, there are ways they can circumvent, like forward your text to them, but he's like, they really have to try for that.
Yeah.
So I agree, but it's especially if everyone's like, not in my house, how do we convince them to do it? How would you think we would convince them to do it?
To do convince who? Google or
just the masses in general to embrace more two-factor authentication. Actually, now I just thought of something. If we're going to post something or retweet, it'd be really horrendous, bad user experience. But if we two-factor authentication, like a tweet, so if we want to retweet, maybe you have to like press your fingerprint on the phone.
Well, no. What I was talking about is verifying the identity of anybody that's of everybody that's on the platform.
Interesting.
So if their identity has been verified and they retweet something, that's fine.
So they're in that that percentage we don't bug them anymore, kind of thing.
Well, those that are not authorized or authenticated as real people should not be on the platform.
Okay.
If I mail you a letter, the post office knows what mailbox it was dropped off at.
And all the stops in between too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they could, when poisons were being mailed to people, the post office was able to trace back to whoever sent the thing. But if you send an email today, it's hard to trace back to who sent it. If you're smart enough, you can look at the raw header file, and it'll tell you the IP address from which it came. And then you can do a who's it on that IP address, and they'll tell you from where that email originated, who has control of that particular IP address.
See, actually, that's interesting to see. Even for me, a tech person, I did not know I could do that. To look at the raw file, find the IP. Interesting. Yep. So if I didn't know this, and I used to grow up on the internet, a lot of people don't even know about that process then, probably.
That's correct. I get an email every now and then, allegedly from DocuSign, saying, here's your invoice. That's about all it says. Click here. And it has a person's name in the from thing. And you go up there and you click on that person's name, and it's some other email address, not something from DocuSign. So the crooks get pretty clever at these kind of phishing attacks. And in fact, the Democratic, Hillary Clinton's campaign was hacked before the election, when the guy that was running the campaign, I forget his name offhand, was told to change his password. They were using Gmail apparently, and he checked with his IT office, and they said, yeah, it's okay to click on that thing. Well, he clicked on it, and he immediately got hacked, and then they were able to get into the system and download all of Hillary's stuff.
Interesting.
Now, if they were using two-factor authentication, that would not have occurred. In fact, the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, went exclusively to two-factor for the past election and did not have any problems that I know of.
I'll say that we know of. We might hear about in 10 years.
Maybe
I'll just keep it quiet the whole time. I love it. Absolutely brilliant. I want to get you on in the future. It's about an hour. So I got some going out questions for you.
Okay.
So first one is, during these lockdown times of Corona, what have you been doing to keep yourself busy other than work?
Riding my bike, planting food in my container garden.
Nice.
That's about it.
Oh, so just pretty much business as usual?
Yeah.
Because you're predominantly from home work?
Yeah, 100% from home. Been working from home since 1993.
Wow. So you were doing the work from home thing before even it was a thing?
Exactly.
That's cool. So then my follow-up question is, what are some tips and tricks someone aspiring to be like you, working from home, working with big companies, successful and on your own?
Well, if you want to offer a product or a service, and a service is intangible product, they're treated the same way. Again, figure out what it is that people want to do, and then develop a product or service that helps them get that thing done easier, better, faster, higher quality.
That's interesting, the way you say service is an intangible product. I've never looked at it that way. I thought it was more like an act. But yeah, okay, that would actually be an intangible object. Wow, thank you. That was a game changer right there. Then the last one is, where can everyone contact you to be like, oh, we heard you on a show, kind of thing?
Yeah, if they go to my website, spicecatalyst.com, there's my contact information there, and the products and services that I offer.
Wonderful. Yeah, then I'll shoot you an email later on, get all the contact info, and put it in the description too. Thank you again, David. This has been an absolute pleasure and eye-opener.
Glad to be with you.
Stay safe.
You too.
Well, congratulations. You made it to the end. You are an awesome person. Not many make it here. So, being the awesome person that you are, can you do me one more awesome favor can you rate and review this on whatever podcast services you're using? If you do it on Apple and you leave an actual written review, I have a thing on my website. I will take your written review and post it for all to see. Congratulations, you're permanently sealed on my site. Otherwise, I am trying to do YouTube more and live streaming. I will try to put as many of the YouTube links in the description of the show as I can. So give your boy some extra help over on YouTube. Watch my videos. I just mute it and change the channel, change the window or something. But yeah, that's it. Thank you for being awesome, and see you next time.